turn it around and go right back into the next one. And, you know, NBC saying 45 minutes to the next race, and they've got this team of trainers like massaging him and getting him ready to go. And mentally and physiologically, that's amazing.
Well, you have to wonder, he swam 17 different times in the course of 7 days. I mean, doesn't that elevate him in terms of his accomplishments?
Well, he's prepared for it, and he's started this venture when he was 11 years old. And what he's done, my interpretation, is exposed the sport of swimming to people who don't participate, and the trials and tribulations that go along with it. His mother got the proper amount of press because swimmers don't do this on their own. They have a tremendous support group, the family, the community, and the coaching staff. And the coach was someone who recognized his talent at a very early age and mapped out a program. As so many swimmers have had the same thing done, and what he did and his family did is they chose to follow that program. A lot of other young athletes have come along but chose not to do that, and he's just put it out there, and now the world is exposed to how much work it actually takes.
You know, it's interesting because when you have a discussion like this, there's always the pros on one side and the cons on the other, that because it is an individual event that perhaps it should weigh more, that on the other hand, someone like Michael Jordan needs to lead an entire team. Someone like Lance Armstrong is working by himself. Roger Federer, I mentioned him at the top of the show. Tell me what it takes to be inside the mind of a swimmer to compete at the level that he's been competing at so consistently.
I think that the way Michael approached the sport, and he started doing this from a very young age, at the advice of his coaches in a very linear way, and he took it step by step by step, and he never jumped steps, really. Everything was planned out, and it's one of the greatest things about swimming is that you can follow that line and you can say, how do I get to point B? Well, this is how I get from A to B. But very rarely does an athlete buy in like Michael bought in at such a young age, and that's what's so great about him, is he, from 11 years old, he dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. And I'll never forget, in 2000, we were done swimming. It was the last day of swimming at the games, and we were all going out and having dinner, and there was dessert, and Michael's like, I don't want any. And I said, I have a 15-year-old brother. Every 15-year-old boy in America wants dessert. And he said, no, I have to go to practice tomorrow. And Bob and I have a strict nutritional
So even
diet.
though the games were over, and that would be the one night that he might be able to say, okay, I can splurge tonight, he was so disciplined that even then he wouldn't do it. He would not stray. All right, so what kind of discipline does that take to be an Olympic gold champion medalist 8 times over in 1 week? If you want to tell us your opinion, you can go ahead and give us a call. And we are having this debate about whether this elevates him to the so-called greatest athlete of all time, or are there other people? And Jeff, I know that you're a history of sports. Certainly, I mentioned this topic to my husband, and he said, wait a minute, Jim Brown? Does the name Jim Brown come to mind? And then he rambled off about 8 other people that he thought should be in line before Michael Phelps.
Well, I think Phelps is certainly in that line, but I think what your husband was saying is a broader thing that we see all the time. Great athletes like Jim Brown, a great cyclist that most people in America never heard of, who I think is the greatest of all time, a guy named Eddie Merckx. Those guys did special things in an era before everything was on ESPN and ESPN News, and we had the New York Times splashing things all over the internet and in newspapers. Michael Phelps dominated headlines and media in the United States for the last 7 days, more so than any other human being I can remember in recent times. So when you have people that have the exposure like a Michael Phelps does, like a Michael Jordan started to create, like Tiger Woods has, he's got video games, he's got commercials, he's in magazines, he's got endorsements, you name it. Michael Phelps is now in that crowd, and he is going to be marketed. I got a list of what he's picked up this week. Are you ready for this? He now represents Speedo, which he did coming into the games, Visa, Hilton Hotels, AT&T, Kellogg's, Rosetta Stone Language Learning, Pure Sport Beverage, and swimroom.com. He's going to be all over for the next 6 months, a year and a half. He'll be
Is that all?
He'll be repeatedly put into our consciousness, and I think because it goes top of mind, you think, well, great athlete, greatest of all time. Maybe it is Michael Phelps. Maybe it is Tiger Woods, because we're bombarded with those images. People in the past, we really didn't get that. And it's amazing that a guy like Mark Spitz, endured his name throughout the years, but really was resurrected with the accomplishments of Michael Phelps this week.
And you know what? You mentioned Mark Spitz. We're going to talk about him because his records at the time, I remember in 1972, people thought those records would never, ever be broken. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Anita Marks is with us. If you can stay with us, we want to get some more input from Baltimore, the home of a great champion, Michael Phelps. So we're going to talk more with her. And of course, we'll take your calls when we return. Who is the greatest athlete of all times if it's not Michael Phelps? Log on to cn8.tv and take our web poll. More importantly, though, if you're on the telephone line and you want to weigh in, give us a call.
He might be top 3 greatest U.S. Olympian of all time, but I can't say top in the world, top athlete in the world.
I don't know how to compare him to other athletes. I wouldn't go so far as to say he's the best in the world, but maybe top 5, top 10.
8 gold medals, can't say no more. Speak for itself.
Transportation for It's Your Call guests provided by Preferred Car and Limousine.
No one's ever done what he's done before. It's unprecedented. Mark Spitz was the winningest swimmer before him, and he blew him away.
Based on the 14 gold medals, if he comes back again in the next Olympics, he'll absolutely be one of the greatest athletes of all time.
Greatest in his sport. You know what I mean? Every sport's different. You know what I mean? Like if some of the track and field guys could run more sports, they could get as many medals as him probably too. But for him, you know, being able to compete in more than one event, that's probably the reason why, you know, he's touted as the best ever.
The best Olympian, that would be for sure. Hard to imagine him being done better by anyone else, and he still has probably one more Olympics to go, frankly.
may have more than one, because as we've seen in the 2008 Summer Olympics, there are athletes who are